Hello, I'm Ariam, and these are all the books I read in May of 2025. So, I did not actually read a lot, but I did mostly enjoy what I read. So the first book I read was Vault of the Blue Dawn by Mary Pope Osborne. This is the penultimate book in the Magic Trios Merlin Mission series. In this series, we follow our main characters, Jack and Annie, who in the first series, the Magic Trio series, they found a magic treehouse, and there are books, and when they point at a picture of a book and say which to go there, it takes them to that place in time. In Vault of the Blue Dawn, they travel to Alaska in, I think it was like 1906 as this happened, something like that, and they basically have to help get this medicine that will save a lot of people from dying to the town, which is basically what Balto and all the other dogs on the way did. I definitely enjoyed this book, but I enjoyed it all the more for the author's note at the end, where Mary Pope Osborne really made sure to explain that Balto was not the only dog involved and actually wasn't even the dog that did the hardest part. So that made me even enjoy the book even more, because it does annoy me that Balto just gets all the credit. First of all, because he's a dog, so he didn't even choose to do it. But secondly, because he just got the credit because he was the last one. Okay, next book I read was Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. And this is over 1,000 pages, so it took me a long time to read. And this book definitely isn't for anyone. Isn't for everyone. It is for anyone, and because I liked it. I enjoyed it. This wasn't my favorite book in the world, but I think I would give it a 4 stars. Very hard to explain because there's no real plot here. It just follows the revival of English magic. So in this world, we are living in the Regency era in this book. And in this world, there is magic. There used to be magic, but at around the mid to late 1600s, it just vanished. And so we have this magician, Mr. Norrell, who really wants to bring back. People have been studying magic, but nobody's ever done it since then. So he really wants to bring back practical magic. And then he gets a student, Jonathan Strange, and they end up disagreeing. But that takes a really long time in the book. So the book it starts off with Mr. Norrell and how he is very much an unpleasant person, but also how he's trying to revive the practice of English magic, but also he's a super unpleasant person. And then Jonathan Strange, who's a very pleasant person, and it shows their disagreements, and there's some stuff that goes on, but it's a good book. Look, if you really like fantasy and really like being in a world, I would say read it. If you're very plot driven, don't read this. But if you just love the world building stuff, definitely read this. Okay, next book I read was Mini Shopaholic by Sophie Kinsella. This is number 6 in the series. And so this series follows our main character, Becky, and she loves shopping. And this is just a really silly, nice, realistic fiction series. In this book, she has a 2-year-old daughter, and that's technically what the book is about, but the book is also about her trying to create this big secret birthday for her husband who's had a really hard year, and she just wants to surprise him. This wasn't my favorite book in the Shopaholic series. This might even be my least favorite. I felt like the first half was really not very strong. The second half was definitely extremely strong, and I really liked the second half. And the way she built the relationships, especially between Becky and her mother-in-law. But the first half definitely wasn't as strong, so it kind of pulled it down. Better the first half being not as strong than the second half, right? You'll see why I said that soon. Okay, the next book I read was The Train to Impossible Places by P.G. Bell, and I loved this book so much. This is a middle grade fantasy book. It's about a girl who wakes up and she finds these trolls building a train in her house, and she's like, I've got to see what's going on here, and she jumps on it, and she immediately basically annoys this really villainous person and gets in a whole bunch of trouble, and I just loved it because we get to see the world, this whole magical world. At the same time, the plot is going, and it was just such a great book. It's the first in the series, but unfortunately I couldn't find anywhere that I could get the rest of the books in the series. So The next book I read was The Tropic of Servants by Marie Brennan. This is the second book in the Memoirs of Lady Trent series, which is a book which follows. It starts right before Queen Victoria was crowned. This book is also, I think, a little bit before Queen Victoria was crowned, but these books do go over a lot of years. So basically, it follows this woman who, like I said, it's the early 1830s, and she really, really loves studying dragons. Like, that is her life's passion. She wants to become a dragon naturalist. So and I think, like, each book she goes to a different place in the world to study dragons. So this book goes to someplace in our world would be Africa. And she just has a lot of adventures studying dragons. And I think it's really fun. I think these books are really fun. Love these series. Okay, next book I read, another book I loved, was Power of Three by Dana Wynne Jones. This is a standalone, and it's a middle grade fantasy about these 3 kids who, I really don't want to give away spoilers is the thing, and this one is another one that's really hard to explain without giving away spoilers. So we have these 3 kids, and they kind of live this happy, peaceful life. They do have their normal amount of childhood worries, but then something happens. Their uncle's town is attacked, and they all have to come and stay there in these kids' town, and that basically gets a ball rolling, and where these kids discover so many new things about the world, and their whole world changes. Okay, the next book I read was a reread for me, and this is Hours of the Queen by Mercedes Lackey. This is a book I read in 8th grade and 9th grade? I'm not sure. But when I was 14, and I really, really loved this book, and it was just such a great time rereading it. So in this world, there are people called heralds, and they basically help the queen dispense justice. They go to all these far flung out places of the kingdom, and they help dispense justice. And our main character, Talia, grows up in a cult, and she really, really wants to become a herald. And one day and these heralds have special horses called companions. And one day she runs away just to hide out for a little bit because she's got some really bad news. And she sees a companion, and she's like, what a great way to escape for a little more. Let me find this companion to its owner. Return this companion to its owner. Da-da-da-da. She ends up getting to the capital and becoming a herald herself. Okay, the next book I read in May is The Monster of Ellenhaven by Jennifer Giesbrecht. Another book that definitely isn't for anyone. This is a horror novella. And what is it about? It's about the monsters in this town called Ellenhaven. So I really like this book as well. Though I did not love the ending, and it did at times get too romantically gory for me. So this book, basically, it follows our main character, Johan, who is a monster. He doesn't know where he came from. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He just kills, and he kills for fun. And he meets this guy who wants to get revenge on the whole of Ellenhaven and basically the whole of the world. And so they fall in love, basically, and they try to kill together. But really, this book is about corruption and how, but not only about corruption, it's about corruption and pollution and people being monsters. It's not our main character, Johan, who literally can't die and is a monster, is not the only monster there. Basically, everyone in this book almost is a monster. Okay, the last book I read in May is Tatooine by Eti Alguim. And this book. So this book is about our main character, Elia. She lives in the secret magical kingdom in our world. And this magical kingdom just takes in all of the unwanted people of the world and also the magical people of the world. And so she grows up here, And she is a servant in the palace. And on one day when she's serving food, a woman bursts into the room and gives this prophet that besides the two twin princes, there was also a third, they were actually triplets, there was a third princess who was disappeared. And when she comes back, the whole kingdom will fall into ruins. And basically the story goes from there. And Aliyah does eventually leave her magical kingdom, and she comes to Israel, and a lot of things happen. Now, I really like the, I not really liked it. This wasn't the best written book, and I knew that because I've read another series from this author before, and it also was not very well written, but I enjoyed the beginning. I enjoyed the end. But the middle part of this had so many plot holes and world building holes, and I couldn't ignore it. Also, this book was published in 2014, and I was a teenager in 2014. And look, I was a religious teenager, so maybe I did not exactly dress the same as non-religious teenagers, but that's how people dressed in 2014, the way she was describing. Just so you know. Anyways, like, no jean jackets. That's all I want to say. But yeah, so anyways, I do plan on continuing the series, but unfortunately this was not my favorite. So that's all the books I read in May of 2025, but I do want to just talk about series. A big goal of mine is to, like, get down about series I'm reading. So, we did do one thing good. I continued two series. That's actually two things good. I continued the Magic Trio's Merlin Mission series with Balto of the Blue Dawn, and I continued the Memoirs of Lady Trent series with Tropic of the Servants. And now we can just move on, right? That's it. That's it. Video done. No. This is the first in a series. This is the first in a reread of series. Oh, I also continued Shopaholic. That was also good. But this is also the first in a series. Luckily, the other books are actually extremely short. She just wrote one huge book and then a bunch of really short ones. Not even a bunch of them, but so yeah. I continued 3 series. I started 3 series. Yeah. Yeah. Everything I read in May and all of the series I continued and started. Thank you for watching.